In this lesson, you're going to learn the bass-driven banger Borderlines by progressive sludge metal trailblazers Baroness. This song is a masterclass in bass composition, songwriting, and has some killer riffs. Welcome to the Beholden to the Riff YouTube channel. My name is Jared, and if you're a fan of heavy music, play bass, or just like what you see, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and rest easy knowing you're going to get the latest and heaviest bass lessons. I really appreciate you checking out the channel and for your support. So I've been a huge fan of Baroness ever since the EPs, and to have witnessed the band's progression has been incredible. Their latest album, Golden Grey, explores new territory and shows a band that's always experimenting and always striving to grow. The band's bassist, Nick Jost, joined the band in 2003, and you can hear his impeccable chops on Purple and this current album. Jost's jazz and funk influences are reflected in his bass lines, and his playing style is full of tasty licks, insane technique, and nasty bass lines. This song is in drop D, so grab your axe, lower the E down to D, and let's do this. So we're going to start the verse off with the 1 chord, D minor. This one's going to be a D minor 7 arpeggio. It's going to go like this. Next, we're going to go to the 6th chord, which is a B flat major 7 arpeggio. So the very first time they play that chord, he actually plays it like this. Coming back up to that root. For every other time he plays it throughout the song, it's like this. Next chord is going to be the 5 chord, an A minor 7 arpeggio. So at the end of the verse, Jost plays this really interesting run. It hints at an A dominant chord, a dominant 7 chord, substituting for that A minor 7 arpeggio. So here it is nice and slow. This chord substitution can be heard in tons of blues songs. Beatles do it a lot. It's a really good tool to kind of keep in your toolbox. So coming out of that run, we're going to go back into the 1 chord. It's going to be played slightly different. So he just kind of plays with the timing of the first couple notes instead of the, like we were doing before, it's. So one thing to watch out for is this thing moves at a pretty quick pace. And it can be a little difficult to maintain the feel of the song while transitioning through all those arpeggios. So we switch it up a little bit, coming out of that kind of repeated verse. So this part sounds really cool. It's we're going to lead back into that dominant 7 chord. We're going to play the same. And after that quick run, we're going to go into a sort of modified version of the D minor 7 arpeggio. Basically just riding that root note here on the 5th fret. I like to think of these as groups of 6, and we're going to play 3 groups of 6. So after that last group of 6, we're going to go into another kind of transition riff, setting up the 5 chord. So here it goes. So as we move through these riffs, really try to keep that triplet feel going, that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here's that quick run, followed by the transition riff into the pre-chorus. So the last part, we go into that A dominant 7. So one thing that's really cool about this chord and why it might sound so interesting is that it's an inverted chord. Starts here on the 4th fret. So we're inverting an A dominant 7 chord, and our ears are used to hearing the A as the bass note, but we're not going to use the A. We're going to use the C sharp, the 3rd of the chord, as the bass note. Really kind of snaky riff here. So this riff has Really cool timing, super interesting sound, really jazzy. Sounds really cool against the guitars and what else is going on. So the phrase finishes off with setting our ears up for a modulation, for a little key change. So notice how the phrase sounds unresolved or kind of unfinished when we go to that B flat. So check out how satisfying it is after we hang on that B flat for a little bit, and then we go back into the F. Is glorious. This is where the key change happens. This is where we actually go into F major. So here's the pre-chorus. I'm going to play the whole thing all the way through. Then we're going to go back to the third measure just to check out the timing. So the pre-chorus is only 8 bars, but it packs a punch. So in this short time span, we're actually going to modulate back to the original key, the D minor, and all the while we're going to be swimming in groove. Here's that third measure, played nice and slow. So here's the first phrase of the chorus, plays it 2 times. Last time through, play the open D. He might even hit the power chord. Here's the next phrase. Plays this one a couple times too. So here's the last phrase, basically transitioning back into the verse. After the first chorus, the song goes back into a third verse. For the most part, verse 3 is played the same as the first couple verses, one exception being the lead-in riff played here. So after that tasty lead-in, everything is played the same all the way up until the transition run. Coming out of that, we're going to go back into that triplet feel, 5th fret, A string, the root. Following those 8th notes, the A dominant 7 chord is once again highlighted. This time by playing a C sharp in the bass, all while during a run. So the last couple measures leading into the pre-chorus goes like this. Right here, the song goes into a second chorus. We're going to play the same chord tones and arpeggios as the first chorus. This time, however, the bass line is beefed up by adding syncopation and a little more action overall. So let's take a look at a couple of the highlights. First measure. Here's the next phrase, nice and slow. So here's the last part of the phrase. I'll play it slow just to get the timing. As the guitar solo kicks in, Jost establishes his signature groove, but just as we start to settle in, he goes way off the map. We're talking holding non-chord tones over the bar line, playing in what seems an entirely different meter than the rest of the band. And just when we think it's all going to collapse, the son of a gun brings back those sweet, sweet arpeggios from the verses and ties it all back together. This is truly incredible. Let's check it out. So here's that beginning groove section of the guitar solo. Here's just the last measure. I'll play it slowly. So here's the next section. I'll play it slowly. There's a lot of cool stuff happening here. This is the holding the chord over the bar line part, and a lot of kind of syncopated playing as well. So here's where we bring back the arpeggios from the verses, this time on steroids. The first one is familiar, but the rest of them are juiced. Here's that first measure as we get back into that groove section. You'll recognize it. So I'm going to play the next two measures together, just because the phrase kind of links up. So what I found useful to make those two measures kind of flow a little better was use this chord shape here. First finger, third finger, pinky below. So that's going to be the first part. So from there I'm going to shift these two fingers up one string. So here's where I shift in the middle. Right here. So it may seem a little weird at first using your pinky, especially during that transition. But I played it a million ways and that one worked the best by far, really smoothed everything out. So here's the transition run leading into the last chorus. So check out the tab in the link below if you do want to learn the pre-chorus and the next chorus section. They're extended and embellished versions of the first couple and definitely worth learning, but that ending jam is calling our name. All right, here's that final end section, that bass groove. So cool. So I read in an interview with the singer and guitarist John Dyer Baisley, said this part is actually an improv. It just happened when they were recording it, and it just sounded so cool that they left it. Kind of threw some psychedelic swirly guitars over the top of it. So a little more than halfway through, there's a part where the beat actually flips. And I guess this is part of the improv. And as the story goes, Nick Jost picked right up on it and just laid down this sick bass part. These guys are beasts of the highest order. Let's get at it. Here's the first phrase of that groove section. So the first phrase is based around the D minor 7 arpeggio. He's just playing with the feel. First measure. Next measure. Next measure is just like the first. The phrase finishes with these kind of full power chords. First one's 5, then he moves up to 8, then he moves up to 10. I like to play it with the thumb, first and second fingers. You could, use your 3 fingers, but I like that thumb. Here's the second section. Same arpeggios, totally different feel. Begins with a kind of doorsy, love me 2 times feel. So here's that first measure. Here's the second measure played slowly so you can kind of see what's going on. So this is a pretty big jump, and it's pretty quick. Just kind of got to get used to making that jump. It's got a great groove to it. Here's that third measure. He never runs out of new stuff to play. One thing that I found really helped here is start the fast part with your second finger, and then rake. Finishes off the same. Just before going into the third section, he actually adds an extra measure of 6. I'm going to play the previous measure plus this extra measure. So here's the third phrase. Actually starts just like the second phrase does, and then on the third measure revisits the first phrase, flips the groove, and then we're going to switch how we play the last arpeggios as well. Here's that fourth phrase. Has the same feel as the first phrase. The first measure is played a little different. I'll play it here. Here it is one more time. Here's the whole thing. So the fourth measure has another feel to it. Goes like this. The next section is where the beat flips. So we're going to be playing the same notes and the same feel as the first phrase. So the accents are going to line up on different beats in the measure. So it sounds so cool. So he actually plays that phrase twice. So here's the third and final phrase of that bass groove. So the third phrase is where he actually changed the time signature to match the drummer to 4/4. The first measure starts out exactly the same, but essentially we're going to lop off the end to compensate from going from 6 down to 4. Goes like this. So before we were playing, now we're playing. Here's the next couple measures, really emphasizing the new change in time signature. So the fourth measure is now a trimmed down version of those arpeggios. He plays it like this. Fifth measure goes like this. This part is a little tricky, so I'll play it again. He finishes off the phrase just. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you loved learning this one as much as I did. Just let me know if there's any lessons or any songs that you'd like to see, and I'm on it. The reason this channel is here is to help you out, so just let me know.